Hi kids, Mr. Galvan again. Again, I'm going to be reading to you out of Bandit's Moon. Remember, we're on chapter 2. If you have the book and you're following along, that's on page 22. All right, chapter 2, The Buckskin Horse. Here we go. We left a cloud of dust behind us that I suppose could be spotted clear from China. But I didn't see Joaquin once glance behind him. I guess he feared if no one was shooting at him, he was far enough ahead. We were riding into the night end of the sky. We rounded some boulders and dropped into a riverbed. It hardly had enough water in it to splash, but our dust vanished. Still, I could see our tracks in the wet sand and felt on edge. A blind mole could follow us. When bullets began to fly, I knew I'd be as much a target as anybody in the band, but when I thought that at last I was free of Oh Mary, I could hardly hold back my smiles. We followed the riverbed until well after dark, when Joaquin finally stopped to loosen the saddles and rest the horses. That's when he checked the livestock and picked out a horse and walked it over to me. It was a long-haired buckskin that pranced around as if she weren't entirely broke. You would need a fast horse to keep up. You like this one? She's beautiful, I said. He called one of his men for a saddle and began cinching up the leather. I give it to you. It is a gift from Joaquin the Terrible. I shot a look at him. It was easy to give away something that wasn't his. I'll write it, but I won't keep it. It's stolen. Ay, Dios mío, he exclaimed, letting out an exasperated sigh between his teeth. Who put such unkind thoughts inside your head? That's what you do, isn't it? Steal horses? Ay, muchacho. You see Pio Pio over there, trying to swim like a sardine in 1 inch of river of water? In Santa Barbara, we found a rope on the ground. When he dragged the rope to camp, he found a horse on the other end. Is it not finders keepers among Yankees? Stolen, I muttered. I cannot keep it. Holy as a priest, this gringo, he exclaimed. Suit yourself. But name her. How can a horse have any self-respect if she has no name, huh, bandito? I looked back at him, startled. If I was traveling with bandits, did that make me a bandito too? Joaquin gave a signal, and the men mounted their horses. I climbed into the saddle and kept a length or two behind Joaquin and the three-fingered Jack. Riding in darkness, we continued in the riverbed. The buckskin could have been a little less snorty and intimidating, and I had to keep my reins up tight. I had the feeling that if I gave her the slightest chance, the mare would try to throw me. She just seemed to be waiting to let me know who was in charge. I wasn't sure now that Joaquin had done me a wonderful favor in choosing the light-skinned buck for me to ride. I began to notice that my horse showed up ghost-like in the dark. I saw that the other outlaws rode dark animals, and Joaquin's was so black it turned invisible at night. With the posse racing after us, I felt marked. We kept to the river for half the night. The bed narrowed and deepened so that the horses were not splashing up water. We finally stopped. I was a bundle of aches. Even the hair on my neck seemed to hurt. Sir, I said, if it would amuse you to get me killed, say so straight out. With the posse after us, I am marked on that buckskin. I know no such thing. He laughed with contempt. The posse, the handful of thumbs, they're making camp. Well, how can you be sure? I asked. Well, if they want to catch Joaquin, tell them, Yankee, not to let the sun go down. How can they catch me in the night, eh? Under a bandit's moon. I don't see a scrap of moon, I said. I see. That is why it is a bandit's moon. The gringos cannot follow horses' tracks they cannot see. They are making camp. You will be safe on the buckskin. A moment later, I saw how cleverly the wheels spun in this outlaw head. He saw a way to use the horses he'd stolen from Oh Mary. Together with three-fingered Jack and Pio Pio, he slapped the flanks of the horses and started yelling, Go home, run, make your own trail for the Yankees, go home. The outlaws waved their hats until they'd run the small herd off to scrubby flats. In the morning, the posse would find clear tracks cutting west. Joaquin gave a signal to mount up again. The thought of climbing into that creaking saddle once more was as unpleasant to me as it must have been to the buckskin. But I did it. We continued following the river until the sun rose like a blinding white light. We made camp in the shade of a Ronti willow tree. I stretched out in the dirt and fell asleep. That's the end of chapter 3. We're on page 27. Don't forget to do your work now. Bye, kids.